I was sitting at my dining room table. It was dark and I was still in my pajamas from the night before. I hadn't washed my face, although I had taken the dog out in my pajamas. I'd become one of those neighbors. Hey, I'm Deborah Atkinson, and you're listening to the Voice for Fitness Professionals podcast, where I usually tell marketing and sales strategies that'll help you create a fitness business and a life that you love. The balance in both, even in these corona times. And what I just did, I hope, was made you a little curious about what happens next. Whatever was I talking about? Because that is the art of storytelling. So if you were in it with me, I'll fill you in a little bit later on what the end of that story was. But the point is you should be telling your own stories. It's one of the number one ways that I've connected with audiences since 2013, when I very first started narrowing my focus down to women who are flipping 50. And by the way, you can too. The Flipping 50 Fitness Specialist is the sponsor of this episode. There are about 2.5 more days to take advantage of one of the very few, 1, 2, or 3 remaining spots left for a special rate for the Flipping 50 Fitness Specialist. But even if you've missed it and they're gone, when they're gone, by the way, it is still something that you want to consider. If you love being authentic, transparent, you love telling your own stories, and especially if you are a woman in midlife who's walked the talk. You've worked on your own hormone balance with better exercise prescription. That's exactly who she wants to work with. And trust me, whenever I'm talking to an audience, whether it's on a podcast, on a summit, or it's literally on a stage, and at some point we'll be there again, the first question I get asked is, where do I find a trainer who knows this? And it's why we have a directory that gives trainers, health coaches, and the customers who want to find them the way to connect. So I'll leave the link to that in the show notes, but right now, let's get started because this episode is really fun. How can you get customers and make marketing fun, which is always a good goal? You can do that by telling stories. Here's how that's going to work. And everyone loves a story, yet few people use storytelling for a positive impact in their marketing. And that's why you can shine. Instead, here's what we all do. We broadcast information as if we are the World Health Organization or National Institute of Health. Most fitness pros go on and on about the benefits of exercise and the features of our services, or worse, the certifications and the qualifications of you or your staff members, as if nobody else could say the same thing. But of course they can. You don't have the edge on Pilates or strength training or functional training or whatever your favorite mode of exercise is. You didn't invent it, but no one can tell your story. There's one thing to remember about a good story, though. Make it about them. So yes, it's your story, it's your experience, but when you start telling stories, you can connect with people and get fitness customers easily in a way that you can't unless you tell stories, because the stories become the why you. And when I say make it about them, what I mean by that is they have to be able to see themselves in your story. They have to be somehow hooked that they need to know the end of the story and the outcome because it matters to them. And if you're telling a story that they really don't care about, you'll see it on their faces if you're face to face with them. But even though stories become the why you and the why nobody else will do, it's not comfortable. It's vulnerable, it's transparent, and you may resist it or have in the past. I spent a weekend once with a business interviewing key managers, videotaping them. We told their stories about why they were doing what they were doing and not being teachers or plumbers. We told what it meant why it meant something to them personally, whether that's because of a cancer scare or it's because of a father or grandfather that aged in a way that scared them. We told about how their personal life or family members became a part of every conversation with a customer. We put together these video clips to get fitness customers easier, more authentically, and to humanize a business. But the general manager never implemented them. It wasn't comfortable, it was new. Right now, it's exactly stories like that which will take you from being a business or a personal trainer to being the friend and the guide who will help. And you will help yourself too. So, how do you tell stories that get fitness customers? Follow a few key tips that I'm going to mention here to start telling your own story. I'd suggest writing it out. Just pick a few stories, things that you probably go back to over and over, things that if you just go through your memory file, go through, okay, last year, the year before, when I was in college, when I first got married, whatever, that use to catalog your time. Go through those stories. Were you hit by a car? Were you in an accident? Tell that story. What was the recovery like? I was thrown from a horse when I was 25. I still tell that story because it is so relevant and significant with a specific area that I'm niching in when I talk about core and low back issues and avoiding them. But think about your own stories. What's there that you need to go back to? So I recommend get those on paper or speak your story and transcribe it with otter.ia. I've mentioned that in a prior episode. I'll link to it in the show notes. Once you've gotten those stories down, you want to pick the point. So every story that you tell should have a point. What is that point? So it's not just, I'm going to tell a funny story. I'm going to tell a good story. I'm going to tell a story that, is about my success and why, this worked for me. So you have to have a bigger point than that. So is this to illustrate why, trying to do the same thing and get different results is crazy? I have a triathlon story that does that for me. I pointed out and laughed at myself and my expectation being that. And then I reflected it on them and asked a question. But I couldn't do that even with authority or as a guide and connect to them in a way that was as tightly knit, as making me like them. They could see themselves in me. So we were much more engaged with each other than had I just said, you're crazy if you think you're doing this and you'll get different results. But when I told the story, I revealed a lot about myself and the way I think and the way I feel. And that connected me to them. So that's what you're after, is those moments when they see themselves in you. You're not this on a pedestal, eat broccoli and chicken all the time, only all the time. That's what you eat. And you exercise and run 10 miles a day. And of course you're lean and fit. You struggle. You too get sick. You too get tired. You too get stressed. They need to see that. Okay. So you're looking for those things and then look for the point. What might be the point in each story? And if you don't have one right away, just let it sit. And you may realize that there are different ways you can tell the same story to make different points. What's the point that story illustrates? That's what we want to get to eventually. And whether it's funny or it's sad, that also matters. For instance, a sad story will get attention more than a happy one. Think about Sarah McLachlan's sad dog commercials, getting donations happen because of that sad story. Nobody can stand to watch that. I don't know about you, but I can't watch that again and again. But you can't use sad stories all the time. So in small bits at the right relevant time, it could work. When you've got your full story down, Either you took the notes, you got it in order, and now it's transcribed. You're going to leave out the parts people already know. That comes from Steven Spielberg, a book he wrote called On Writing. And I highly recommend it if you're writing blogs or you're writing emails, because you are telling stories. You want to drop into the middle of a story. So this is another key tip. First of all, right, you've got to decide what your story is and what point it illustrates. And then when you tell that story, you're going to drop into the middle of a story. You don't start with once upon a time. That works, but only for 3 and 4 year olds. You want to grab them. Do you remember how I started at the beginning? My story began with sitting at the dining room table, right? So I was sitting at the dining room table and it was dark and I was still in my pajamas. So somewhere on some level, you actually may be there at your dining room table in your pajamas, imagining what that feels like. I could barely see the interstate through my tears. The reason I was leaving was calling me on the phone, telling me he wished I wasn't leaving. Let me go. Let me go or hold on tighter. The front and the back seats of my car were full of computers, blenders, client files, and my bike was on my carrier. So that's it. It's what it had come down to when I needed to pack that and my Old English sheepdog. I'd left a house full of non-essentials sitting in the middle of each room of my 4,200 square foot house to live with these essential things for however long it took me to sell my house. For the next however long, I was going to be living in the basement apartment of my niece's house. So imagine that. I dropped you into the middle. I didn't go through all the packing, the tears. What I went through is that 10-hour car trip across Nebraska, of all things, right? So that is the key. Drop them into the action where they can imagine. And I didn't say I was driving, right? I just said I could barely see the interstate through my tears. So you may have discerned I was driving. Okay. So the importance of story illustrated. My TEDx talk, for instance, if you're familiar with TEDx, you know how it works. Each one is different, but these are about 15 minutes. That's all you get. And you have one big idea to relay. My TEDx talk was a string of stories that let you and me, as I was telling it, be in the moment. I'll link to it here, but I want you to listen for the stories in it. How many did I tell? You want your listener to see themselves in the story. So imagine under the pressure of relaying a very important big idea in under 15 minutes to people who don't know me, don't know what I do and did. If you're going to tell, and I did, at least 5 different stories, whether you're doing a 3-minute video, you're writing an 800-word blog, or you're talking on the radio, you want to tell a story. You've got stories. You have gold. Nobody else has those. It's a simple and easy way to get fitness customers who will love you and who you will love working with. If you need help, today through Friday, as I release this one, we're in this last few days of the streak of July 2020's fitness marketing podcasting. And after this, I've got to go back to a little lower frequency because I have things to do, guys. But today through Friday, and it ends on Saturday, I'm offering the Fast Flip business coaching at a very special rate. So Fast Flip is a fraction of private coaching, which is starting at $2,000 for a 90-day package. Fast Flip is a fraction of that to help you nail your message, to help you tell your stories, to help you figure out where you drop in, to create videos, create the places where you tell those stories. So Fast Flip is 12 weeks of accountability calls with me, one-on-one. That's you and me by phone direct. So it's just us talking, very personal. But on Saturday, this offer is gone. So if you need to get into action, your message or the actions you're taking now are not working, take advantage of this special offer. Because during this pandemic, people are going to survive, but some people are going to thrive. And right now is your opportunity to pull ahead as a solo trainer. I'm going to link to that fast flip in the show notes, and it will be removed when I'm full or it's over on Saturday. There you have it. How to start telling your stories and have fun. You'll find that being transparent, authentic, really engaging with your audience in a way that feels like you're inviting them into your life feels better. It is not the salesy, sleazy, pushy method of marketing or sales. You're attracting the right people who resonate with what it is you're selling and who you are on your core level. What are you waiting for? The world needs you now more than ever.